Great resolve, great comeback from the Tar Heels to beat Wake on Thursday. But you know what? That performance won't beat Duke tonight.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, March 14th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Friday get started. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, and of course, all the Discord members as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. The Tar Heels, they're still alive and kicking in the ACC tournament, and that's just what we wanted. Just keep winning basketball games. We're going to talk about that today. We'll look ahead to the Duke game tonight, round 3. How's that going to go down? We'll look ahead. We'll look at where the bubble's at heading into Friday. We'll talk weekend whip around. We didn't get to that last Friday. I apologize. But today, obviously, we got to start with the Wake game. Now, I do want to say on the live postcast reaction show after the game on Thursday, we talked about a whole slew of stuff. And so we're not going to go into great detail here, more kind of big picture stuff of what Carolina did and what it meant and how that sets them up for tonight against Duke. Speaking of which, we will have another live postcast reaction tonight after the Duke game. And so make sure you stay tuned for that as well later on this evening. But here we go. I want to talk about the Wake game. We will get to Carolina needing to have a better performance to beat Duke. The Wake performance won't cut it. But here's what I want to say right out of the gate. Had this exact Wake Forest game happened early January, late December, whatever, the Tar Heels don't win it. How many times did we see those close games that were close and close and close all the way down the stretch? You know, I started, looking at the scores of all the ACC games when there were 3 minutes left. And somehow, some way, whether Carolina was down big or up big, when it got to 3 minutes, it would be really close. But Carolina just executed so well down the stretch of this game. It was not a pretty game in totality. We'll talk about some of those numbers here in a little bit. But it was a win. And what I love about what Carolina has done in the ACC tournament so far is this. They have won 2 games, a second round and quarterfinal game, in 2 completely different ways. Against Notre Dame, Carolina just blitzed them on Wednesday. You know, got off to that crazy hot start shooting from 3, made 9 of them in the first half. Carolina blitzed Notre Dame and never looked back. Carolina was the blitzers. The reason I say it that way is because on Thursday against Wake Forest, Carolina were the blitzies. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. 1 of 8 to start the game from the field, and Wake Forest got out to an 11-point lead. But what I love is that Carolina didn't allow Wake to do what Carolina did to Notre Dame the day before. Yes, Wake was up by 11, 14-3. Carolina had just 1 field goal in the first 8 minutes of the game. But they just slowly started reeling in those fighting Steve Forbeses, those fighting Chris Paulses, those fighting Tim Duncans until they had them in their grasp and just kept working it. Just kept working to get there. There was some moment, like there was that 10-point lead early in the second half. I was like, okay, this is the moment. Keep pushing it out. But Carolina couldn't. They couldn't score for a while. And Wake made it a game again. And then Carolina's 14-3 stretch run closed this thing out. And that's what I love, is that Carolina had a game where they were able to blitz and experience leading from ahead and work at maintaining, if not somewhat expanding that lead. And then a game similar to the Pittsburgh game in the ACC semis last year, if I'm remembering correctly, where Carolina got down early to Pitt and had to kind of battle back throughout the game, did and won it, and moved on to face NC State in the championship game. It was kind of reminiscent of that feel where it was like, Carolina just needs to settle in and ball. Just play. They're going to be fine. And they did. But here's another thing that I love about Carolina on Thursday specifically. Coach Pat Kilby and I talked about on the Thursday show how good it was to see Carolina so connected as Jae'lyn Withers is being interviewed by the player as the player of the game. The whole team is there with him, cheering him on, supporting him, doing all that great stuff. Well, guess what? For the second day in a row, the Tar Heels rally around their teammate that is selected to do the post-game interview. In this case, it was RJ Davis and his 23 points and 5 made threes and 8 of 8 at the free throw line, etc. And the dudes rally around him again. And he's over here pointing out Van Allen Lubin, doing all this stuff because Van Allen Lubin was the man, the absolute man down the stretch of this game. But these dudes are in it for each other. And that ain't nothing, man. There is something to that when you play for one another in this way. Coach Rob's 3 things, I want to reevaluate those again. How did Carolina do taking care of the basketball? How did they do with defensive intensity? And how did they do finishing possessions? Well, I got to be very honest. In the first half, they did terribly taking care of the basketball, at least in like the first half of the first half. Carolina had 9 turnovers in the first half to just 3 in the second half. Really, really limited their carelessness with the ball down the stretch of the first half and in the second half. And that was critical because it was when Carolina started actually taking shots instead of handing the ball to Wake Forest that they made a comeback and took a halftime lead and then pushed it out in the second half. Because again, when they hold on to the ball, good things happen because this is a really good offense. Now, this is a game where Carolina's offense wasn't as efficient and effective. In fact, their points per possession were under 1. But you know what? I should also look at taking care of the basketball second chance points because the turnovers were very close. Carolina had 12 and Wake Forest had 10. You know what? This is funny. Carolina actually led no, that's not even what I'm looking for. That's second chance points. I'm looking for points off turnovers. Wake Forest led 16-12. Okay, so that's just about right there for points off turnovers based on what the turnover numbers were. But again, I thought Carolina did, if we're dividing it by half, we graded it yesterday, A to F. So let's do that again. I'm going to give the first half a D- because there could be worse, but not much. And then in the second half, I'd give it a B, solid B with 3 turnovers. But just, there are other ways that you take care of the ball, shot selection, stuff like that. I thought there were some iffy ones in that stretch as Wake was making a comeback there. Secondly, is defensive intensity. I thought the intensity was there. And when you look at the numbers of this game, Wake wasn't that much better than Carolina for the game. They shot 33.9%. You ready for this one? Oh, both teams shot exactly 33.9%. That's pretty crazy. Maybe you realize this, maybe you didn't. Duke. Good grief. I got Duke on the brain for today's game. Wake made exactly 2 3-pointers in this game out of 22 attempts. Carolina also took 22 attempts, but they made 8. Not setting the world on fire, but that is a plus 18 points when you make 6 more threes than they do, right? Like that's a thing. So the defensive intensity was there in that regard. Once again, when you look at the numbers, I mean, Carolina, again, holding an opponent under 60 points. Carolina, for the 3rd time in the last 4 games with Duke as the outlier, has held their opponent under not only 1 point per possession, but under 0.9, 0.9 points per possession. Carolina did that again in this game, holding Wake Forest under that. That's happened 3 out of the last 4 times. So defensive intensity, I'm going to give it an A-. There was obviously some moments in this game when Wake went on some runs and things like that, but all in all, really not too bad of an effort here, particularly in stopping what Wake was doing from beyond the arc. And so, and I don't know that some of that's Wake's own doing, but still, you got to go out and do it. And then finishing possessions, Wake had 10 offensive rebounds off of, the percentage isn't great. How many misses did they have? 41 misses and 5 free throw misses, which I don't think any of their offensive rebounds were free throw offensive rebounds, but not bad, like 25, that's basically 25% offensive rebounding rate. We'll take that. You'd love to cut down on more and not Carolina led second chance points, actually. So that's not bad either, especially for having only one more offensive rebound than Wake did. So I'm going to give that a solid B. Solid B on finishing possessions there, Carolina against Wake. So we'll see how that continues to go. Man, another thing that I loved about this game is it was tough. It was rugged. We talked about the refs and all. Oh man, I don't want to get going on that, so I'm going to move right past it. But Carolina really had to grind in this game. That's another thing that I liked about what they showed was the willingness and capability to grind. To that point, they won a game in which they made the fewest field goals they made all season. Just 19 times outside of free throws did Carolina score. The previous low was 22 against UCLA, and yet Carolina still won this game. Here's a weird one. You ready for this? Carolina made more free throws in this game than field goals. 22 free throws they made out of 27. Really good stuff there. Just 19 field goals Carolina made. That's crazy. I doubt that's happened very often. I don't have the time to go. I love research. I don't have the time to go back and research right now. But I'd love to know how often Carolina has scored more, has made more free throws than field goals in a single game. That's pretty crazy. But again, Carolina winning while doing that shows good to me. And I want to talk about another factor in this game. RJ Davis, who didn't insert himself from a scoring load standpoint until I think we said like 4.5 left in the first half. And I want to look specifically at 3-point shooting and RJ's shooting numbers. At the beginning of Carolina's 6-game winning streak, which started with Cuse, in the first 3 games of that stretch, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia, RJ was not good from 3. He shot 4 of 21. That's just 19%. But in the 6 games since, the 3 games that wrapped what would that be? Florida State, Miami, and Virginia Tech. Those wins plus Duke round 2 and then Notre Dame and now and those 6. In those 6 games, RJ Davis has at least 3 made threes in each one of them, including 5 of 6 on Thursday, which gives him over 350 for his career. You kidding me? But in that 6-game stretch, he has made 21 out of 36 threes. That's 58.3%. So going 19% for a 3-game span, and then the very next 6 turning it around to making 58.3. Consequently, when you look at RJ's shooting numbers, it's like, oh, don't look now or you're going to get sad if you were an RJ like he's no good kind of person. I can't even think of the word I'm looking for. RJ now is up to 40.9% from the field for the season, just like a percentage point or 2 below where he typically is. He's now up on the season, RJ Davis is, to 35% from the threes, from 3-point range. I mean, just think of the hole he dug himself and how he's just been steadily climbing out of it to the tune of now 35%. And it helps when you make 21 out of 36 over a 6-game span. And here's the crazy one to me. RJ now is shooting 89% from the free throw line. That is a career high, single season career high. Really, really crazy stuff. In fact, what's helped him get there? Well, he's made 21 straight free throws. He made the last 3 of the Florida State game, and then he's been perfect in every game since then. Let's keep that rolling. RJ Davis, and that filters out to everyone else. And I meant to mention this in the postcast and I forgot, but let me just mention that there was an interesting wrinkle that Coach Davis employed at times early in the second half. RJ and Elliot were both on the floor. RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau, both out there. But RJ was bringing the ball up and instigating the offense. I'm curious to know why, know more. But I liked it. I like it. I guess I would rather, if you're going to have RJ bring the ball up anyway, I'd rather have Ian or Seth in there, I think. But it was just interesting that Coach Davis was doing that. So RJ Davis, man, is on one right now. Okay. I said already, if Carolina plays like this, what they did against Wake Forest against Duke, they will not win. But if they play like they did against Notre Dame, Carolina could be playing again on Saturday. We're going to look and talk about Duke game and get ready for it. Coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Nissan, look, we're all about the stats over here at Locked On because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers, they're on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team and the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And it's got room for up to 8 people. And with that, the Armada Pro 4X is built for a big crew, a big adventure, and even bigger memories. So whether you're exploring off-road trails or you're rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventure to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. On FanDuel, I love this. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, no waiting around. With tournament games happening almost every day. I mean, it's crazy right now. So many games. There's always exciting action to get in on. How about Carolina and Duke tonight? Blue Devils favored by 7.5, but that line is a lot smaller than it was the other day to end the regular season. We'll talk about why in just a second. So go check it all out at FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Okay, look, it's time to get ready for Duke, but here's what we need to know as we do so. Bracketologists can't seem to make their mind up about the Tar Heels. Some, like Joe Lenardi, are saying that Carolina at this point has done enough relative to the other at-large teams and the fact that there have been no bid thieves yet and are in. While others are saying, look, there's no way Carolina gets in unless they beat Duke. That's the only way. While Lenardi's like, I don't care what happens to Duke, Carolina's in. Well, we'll talk about what happened on Thursday with the bubble and bracketology here in a bit, but for now, suffice it to say, I'm not taking any chances with this thing. I'm not like, oh, we'll go out and play Duke, and if we do okay, that'll be good because we're still going to be in the tournament. No. Absolutely not. I'm not making any assumptions when it comes to being in or out of the tournament right now. The Tar Heels got to come out in this game tonight with their hair on fire. Part of this is you have belief now because you showed yourself and you showed Duke last time that not only can you play with them, but you can hold a lead on them, which Carolina did by 7 points for a while in the second half, and then Duke shut the water off. So you got to avoid that again. And yes, it is hard. There's that old adage, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in the season. Carolina tried to do it in the 18-19 season. That was the Zion shoe blowout year. Carolina won the 2 regular season matchups, and then Duke just barely survived a Kobe White 3 at the buzzer. But it has happened. I went back and looked in past several decades. Duke swept Carolina 3 games in 1988, 1999, and 2002. So it does happen occasionally. It just has only happened once in the 2000s, and that was Duke. So it is hard to do that, and Carolina needs to come out and prove it. Now, part of this, as we get into the Duke preview, obviously you've heard the Cooper Flag news. Hopefully you saw the video. You know what happened to him. Let me first say before any analysis, it stinks for Duke. Let's just recognize that. Like, I hate it for them that Cooper Flag is assumingly going to be out today. Same with Malik Brown, who is their best interior defender. That stinks. I want to win and I want to cut everybody's head off and win by a ton, but I never want to do it at the expense of somebody's health. And so legitimately, I hope those guys get well soon. We want to see that for them specifically. I'm not going to say I want to see it for Duke, but I want to see it for them. Got some kind of hair in my mouth. That's why I'm like fiddling with my lip. So I'm going to assume coming into this thing, no Cooper Flag and no Malik Brown. Here's what John Shire had to say about Cooper Flag's availability post-game. He said, quote, "It's not about being ready to go tomorrow, as in today. That's not the most important thing for us." And he's right. It's not, and it shouldn't be. While it'll be fun to get Duke Carolina round 3, there are bigger fish to fry right now for the Blue Devils. He says, we got to see if we can get him right for this run that we can make in the tournament. I would have to be really convinced that we should even consider seeing if he can go tomorrow, and he might not be able to go anyway. He's probably won't be able to go anyway. I think it's a real long shot. I think there's a lot of wisdom from that in John Shire, just basically saying, look, the ACC tournament would be great, But we just won the ACC regular season. And the most important thing, with all due respect to winning conference championship tournaments, is to win the big dance. That's what Duke's eyes are set on a number one seed. And they're going to come out tonight and try to prove it. So just because Cooper Flagg is out doesn't mean anything. Just because Malik Brown is out doesn't mean anything. Duke is going to come out. They're going to have circled the wagons and say, let's win this for these two guys. So just because Cooper's out, it doesn't mean anything. You've still got to come out, be ready to go. I think the biggest thing the with Cooper out of the lineup, the person you got to stop is Con Knipple. He had 28 points on Thursday, 7 of 14 shooting, 2 of 6 from 3, and get this 12 of 13 at the free throw line in the game against Georgia Tech. Con Knipple has to be shut down. I don't know if we'll see that being a Drake Powell assignment. It might depend on who Duke chooses to start. So we'll get to that in just a second. But the other person now with Cooper out of the lineup and Malik Brown that I really want to keep my eye on is Con Knipple, and the other is Isaiah Evans. Why? Because you cannot allow him to get going from 3 or he will rain on your parade all day long. Made 4 of 8 on Thursday against Tech. So as I look at the starters, my guess, what I would imagine is going to happen is the 4 usual starters that are in there with Cooper Flagg, which would be Tyrese Proctor, Sion James, Con Knipple, and Kaman Malawach. I wouldn't be surprised if Mason Gillis gets inserted at that 4 position in Cooper's absence. He's not as athletic as Cooper. He's not quite the basketball player Cooper is, but he's got experience, and that's what he brings to the lineup. Does Mason Gillis, and I think that could be something. But also, I would keep my eyes on Isaiah Evans being inserted into the starting lineup as well. Maybe Con goes up to the 4. I don't know what would happen. But that's the thing, is that they might want to just try to bomb away a little bit early and get Carolina out of it. So if I'm guessing, I think the starters would be the usuals: Tyrese Proctor, Sion James, Con Knipple, and Kaman Malawach. And then I really do think it'll be Mason Gillis. And if not, I'm going Isaiah Evans. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that while Malik Brown is a phenomenal interior defender, he is not their starter. That is Malawach. And so what that means for Duke is they got to figure out a different backup rotation for this game. Duke had struggled at times with Malik Brown out during the season. I think both to NC State and Wake Forest kind of putting one on him for a little bit before Duke came back. That's a reality. That's a thing. And so that's just like without him, without both of them, it puts Carolina in a much, much better place. So what does it all mean, though? Well, Duke's still really big. They're still really good. They're still really lengthy and rangy. And the second you relax, the second you take a deep breath and say, oh, no Cooper Flagg. Oh, no Malik Brown. We're good. We're great. We're going to win this game. No. That ain't it. You got to come even harder at Duke than you were going to before, because they're going to circle the wagons and say, we got to win this. So Tar Heels, play like your butt is on fire, man. Come out guns blazing. One thing to note is Duke's defense is still going to be really good. Yes, I admit that. But they're going to be without the guys that, by the analytics, are their top 2 defenders in both Flagg and Brown. By advanced metrics, they are easily their 2 best defenders. So can Carolina take advantage of that? Can they get those, just what do they want to do with that? And to answer that, got a mini 4 corners preview that I want to fly through a little bit, because it's just like, let's get to the game, man. Let's go beat these dudes and not let them sweep Carolina 3 games this year. Number 1 question in the 4 corners preview: who guards Con Knipple? Is it Drake Powell? Is it Jalen Withers? Where positionally is Con Knipple playing, and how does Carolina choose to go with that? That's number 1. Number 2, for the Tar Heels, it's the 3rd game in 3 days. For Duke, it's the 2nd game in 2 days. How's Carolina's energy? How's RJ Davis's ankle that he tweaked in the game on Thursday? And I know there's like this worry of like, oh man, you start to wind down, but look at what NC State did last year, right? Like the proof is in the pudding that it's doable We just got to watch it and see if it can unfold. Number 3 in the Four Corners preview. One of the big issues in the Duke game on Saturday was that Carolina just allowed the offense to stagnate, and it made it so easy for Duke to guard them. They just stood there, and that was easy. Got to move the ball more capably. Got to get more than 8 assists that Carolina had on Thursday against Wake and against Duke last Saturday. Like, Carolina's just got to be better there. And then number 4, get the switches and exploit them. Duke typically switches 1 through 5 against Carolina. I don't know if they will now since they're down 2 of their main players. We'll have to see. But if they do, one of the things that Carolina has done so well is find those mismatches and exploit them. It's harder against Duke because even if you switch, let's say Sion James onto Van Allen Newman, he's still a big dude and can cause havoc. But get the switches and then either finish, get fouled, or kick out for 3 and make it. And to that point, I think Carolina probably needs to make 13 to 15 threes to win this game. Like, that's a real thing that is out there looming for Carolina that they need to take wisely. FanDuel has Duke minus 7.5 in this game. It's come down. It was originally 8.5. So good to see the line moving a little bit there. People getting some money in on the Tar Heels. So we're going to see how this plays out. I am going to predict that Carolina wins the game by 5. So they don't cover, but they do win. And that's more important, right? The other thing with Duke is I wonder about motivation. Yes, it's Carolina Duke, so they're always going to get up. But you just lost your best player, the potential national player of the year, and you're like, oh, man, we need him healthy, right? Like, my mind would be wandering. My mind would be like, well, why do we need this tournament? We've already essentially got a 1 seed locked up, right? Like, is Duke's motivation there? I think that's something to keep your eyes on as well. Okay, quick bubble update here in just a second, and the weekend whip around all coming up really quick in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monarch Money, do you ever check your bank account and wonder, hey, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, man, it's easy to lose track of where it all goes. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just like a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, to track spending, and even plan long-term goals. My wife and I, man, we always want to make sure that we're on the same page with finances. And so thankfully with Monarch Money, managing that money with my wife is smoother than ever before. You can track shared and personal accounts, you can set goals, and you can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. As we sit here late on Thursday evening as games are winding down, I wanted to stay up till the end just to see if there were any changes Jae'lyn already made. But here's where things stand right at the bubble cut line right now. Just last 4 in and first 4 out. Not next 4 out or last 4 buys, just the 8 teams in the middle there. So last 4 in, I'm going to give them to you in order that he has them of most in to like literally the last team in. Even after their loss to Boise State, he's got San Diego State at the top of the heap of last 4 in, followed by the North Carolina daggum Tar Heels, Roy Williams, and then Xavier after that, thanks to Marquette knocking them off, and then the Texas Longhorns who move up thanks to their win over Texas A&M. The first 4 out, so Texas is the last team in. The first team out, he's got Indiana. How about that? Followed by Ohio State, who lost on Wednesday, and then Boise State, who won on Thursday over San Diego State, and then Colorado State. So we got a whole mess of Mountain West teams in here, and that is very interesting indeed. So the bubble losses on Thursday, Baylor, Oklahoma, and Arkansas all lost. But those are teams that I believe were already safely in and not in any real danger of getting bubbled. So just keep that in mind. San Diego State lost, but he still got them as last 4 in. Now, obviously, teams still playing could leapfrog them. Carolina's still playing. Texas and Boise and Colorado State are both still playing. Those other teams, Xavier's out, Indiana's out, Ohio State's out, so they can't help themselves anymore. SMU lost. Wake Forest lost, obviously, because they lost to Carolina, and Villanova lost. Let's technically call them bubble games, but I think those teams were so far out of the mix that they were already kind of out, essentially, anyway. But two results that were really critical for Carolina was Indiana losing. Thank you, Oregon. We see you, and we appreciate you. And Xavier losing. Marquette, we see you, and we appreciate you. And so both of those teams now are behind Carolina, both Indiana and Xavier. And so that's really good. A couple teams that had bubble wins. Texas wins in 2 overtimes over A&M. I was scared that Lunardi was going to jump Carolina with Texas because of getting these back-to-back quad one wins. And to be honest, just like the refs were bad in the Carolina game, toward the end of the first overtime, A&M was up 4. Texas gets a 3 right in front of their bench, and homie traveled. He picked both feet up, and it was like didn't keep contact with his toe. It's a travel. They didn't call it. Anyway, stuff like that happens, and it's like if Texas gets in, so be it. So Texas, Boise State, and Colorado State, those are other teams that were bubble winners. But here's the thing that I keep coming back to. You know how we forget about the bubble and how it doesn't matter if you go out and beat Duke, and then if you go out and beat either Clemson or Louisville or whoever it is that you would face in the, I guess it would be Clemson or Louisville. Louisville got so fortunate at the end of their quarterfinal game on against Stanford on Thursday. So there you go. But the way you don't even take the bubble into consideration is just go out and win the tournament, and then you're automatically in. All right, weekend whip around. Here we go. Women's basketball, obviously just waiting on selection Sunday. They already had their conference tournament. Baseball, softball, both on the road this weekend. Baseball is in Louisville today, Friday, 3 p.m., tomorrow, approximately 7 p.m., and then Sunday at 3 again. The first two on ACC Network Extra, the Sunday game on ACC Network. For the softball team, they are at Clemson tonight, Friday, 6 p.m., tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday at 1 p.m. All three of these games are on ACC Network Extra. For wrestling, the NCAA championship start this coming Thursday, so you're going to want to make sure to cheer on the wrestlers. Women's tennis is off this week, but the men are at Clemson tonight at 5 and at Georgia Tech noon on Sunday. So keep your eyes peeled for how the men do out on the road. Lacrosse teams, the women face number 9 Clemson at noon on ACC Network. And the ladies still undefeated. Really good stuff there, and another top 10 test for them. Men's lacrosse is hosting Jacksonville 2 p.m. Sunday, ESPNU. Be nice to get a win there. Both golf teams are off. Swimming and diving national championships start this coming Wednesday. Fencing has stuff upcoming, but nothing this weekend. And track and field. NCAA indoors start today in Virginia Beach and go through tomorrow. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for how Carolina does there. And then gymnastics tonight is hosting Western Michigan at 6:45 p.m. That'll be on ACC Network Extra. Make sure you check it out. Woo, okay, there's your weekend whip around. I tried to get through it all quick. All right, guys, tonight, 7 p.m., Carolina Duke round 3. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, but we'll see what happens there. Again, we're expecting no Cooper Flag, no Malik Brown. That is the massive, big, crazy news. And again, Carolina cannot shrink back and say, oh, we're fine. There's no Cooper. No. You got to fight like the Dickens to win this thing. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us today. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, go ahead and do that so you don't miss a second of Locked on Tar Heels, including tonight's live postcast reaction show. If you have not joined the Locked on Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you there. It's the link's in the show notes, and it's a great place to join and be part of a great Carolina family. And then also Locked on Tar Heels Insiders. If you want to go even deeper, man, the Insiders get one-on-one access to me and access to all other perks as well. You guys, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Love that the Tar Heels are still playing. Here's to several more. We'll talk again tonight after hopefully a win over Duke. But until then, peace.